Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Great to be with you. Today, we're talking about coaching as a mental health insurance policy. And what we mean by that is lots of people choose to train to be coaches as much for their own development and their own health and well-being and their own mental health as they do for career development. And we think that's not often talked about. So we wanted to give some space today to share some of our personal experiences and talk around this point, because for us as a business, we very much see coaching as a support generally for clients and organizations around everyday mental health.
Mm. I actually trained as an NLP practitioner before I trained as a coach. And when I cast my mind back to that time in my life, I was struggling with what stemmed from a breakup, like a really heavy breakup that took place in my sort of late teens, early 20s. But it was something that I wasn't able to overcome on my own. And I was like, I didn't want to go to therapy because I didn't feel like I needed to go to therapy. Like I was happy in my life and things were going well, but it was like a piece of me that wasn't fully whole, I think would be the way to describe it. And so when I started looking into, I think I just got interested in personal development and self-development. My primary reason for going on my NLP training was to work on that piece of me that wasn't whole. Had no intention of practicing NLP at the time. I was in a corporate role and I knew it would be useful for my leadership development, but there wasn't that wasn't really the primary driver. It was very much about personal development and it worked, and more than I expected it to. So I went with low expectations, really, but as a start of like this personal development journey, and I walked out of there with that piece of me coming back. And so it was the most significant part of my journey to date, doing that training. And it worked for me. Like that was what I needed. It's what I wanted. It was in a way that I wanted to experience it. Other forms of like self-development, like I said, therapy and other kind of counseling or one-to-one coaching or whatever it might have been at the time, wasn't how I wanted to work on healing that part. Yeah, so that's kind of how my journey into this world began, really.
I think that will resonate with so many people. And certainly when I did my coaching training, just as you've described it there, was my experience too. And you don't always know that there's a part or parts of you that uh, want some attention or some healing or some acknowledgement. But on some level, you often do know that. And I remember when I was at uni, I had a couple of counseling sessions related to something, and it just didn't resonate with me at all. And of course, that could be around who I was at that time. It could be around the particular counselor that I, was matched with or had availability for me at that point. Their approach to counseling. We know there are many different styles of professionals within each of the different modalities. But for me, when I found coaching and coaching training, I really felt like I was coming home. It felt like such a safe, supportive, accepting place where you could take risks and experiment with things. And I really looked, when I knew I wanted to train to be a coach, around an approach that would be deeply psychological, because I'd always had an interest in psychology, but I'd never invested or explored in that. So for me, it was also part of uh, resolving an interest because of earlier experiences, wanting to understand about human behavior. And I really wanted to understand how I worked.
Mm.
I felt like no, but in my whole education, I was never educated around how do I know who I am? How do I know? How do I understand why I think and feel about things in the way that I do? And I definitely have always had that desire to search around that. I'm doing a somatic training at the moment, and that is because I, in some way, feel disconnected from my body. And I think I'm in my 40s, I'm a woman in my 40s. I've had children, I've done various things, but do I, am I really connected with my body? Now, reality is probably I'm more connected than I actually realize to it, but I want to explore it because I'm interested in what don't I know as much as what do I know? And also, how can I help others? Like as I grow, I feel like I can offer other people more, and also it can build my resilience as well. So we welcome people. We welcome you to join us on our programs, whether it's our initial coaching training, the different levels we have, or the coaching CPD. And I think about our emotions coaching practitioner training, it's very much designed to support you as the coach or the professional, the human being for your own development, as well as giving you the tools to help others. So all of our courses work on the basis of start with self and develop and connect with self before sharing and supporting others, with the tools and resources.
Mm. I think there's so many more people who come to our programs already for themselves primarily and their career second. I think it's normal. I think it's okay. And I think, if you're listening to this and like, oh, are you advocating doing your course as therapy? Like, no, that's not what we're saying. I think let's normalize the fact that most of us have, as I described, like these pieces of ourselves which don't feel fully fulfilled or fully whole. And I think there is a big part of everybody which is healthy. You've got your healthy self, and when you approach a learning program like ours, you're coming in your healthy self. You're coming with the inspiration and motivation and engagement to grow and learn and develop. You're coming with an open mind to have that learning hit the spot that you've been trying to get to for some time and perhaps haven't been able to. So, no, don't come on our program if you're coming for therapy. Yes, do come on our program if you're in that space. We're like, yeah, a good portion of me is here and is ready to learn and is thirsty for more. And I'm going to keep an open mind to see if this is a piece that can really help those other pieces of me too. And I just think that is human experience, isn't it? That we are not all perfectly polished, perfectly whole human beings, all walking this planet with all our ducks in a row. Like that is not reality. The reality is the human experience is messy, and healing can come in lots of different forms. And I think even when we work with clients, there is this boundary that we talk about in coaching around, where's the boundary between coaching and therapy? And it's like, we do talk about that and we give a clear answer. And in this discussion, what I would say is it's not always clear, because actually, if somebody arrives at a point where they're already halfway through a coaching engagement and then it starts to become a bit more therapeutical, that's normal, because that's the building of trust. So I'm probably meandering now, but there's just some of the thoughts that come to mind as I think about healing comes in many different formats. And I think sometimes these educational programs, like the ones that we run, are healing experiences. They're not intended to be, they're not marketed in that way, but the fact remains that they are.
There's a book, isn't there, that's been published, which is called Leader as Healer. I can't think who the author is. But you and I years ago talked about, when we're forming our business and what we wanted to do, about creating a program with exactly that name, because we do see a role of of individuals, like as we're as healers for each other in different ways, because we are all so interconnected. But the title of this podcast being around coaching as a mental health insurance policy, is also talking to the point where I think about the experiences that I have had, am having in my life, that are traumatic on some level, because that is what it is to be human. As you say, our experience is messy. I am so grateful every day for the coaching training and awareness and knowledge that I have, how that has shaped me and helped me to grow as a person, because my emotional resilience is so much greater as a result of that. And as I say that, I'm like, and is it greater or is it the same? and I have stronger boundaries, which enables me to have more resilience. Is, it's a bit of both. It's not as simple as one of the. It's not always about developing the absolute most resilience that you possibly can. I don't subscribe to that model, but all I know to be my truth is that I believe that if I hadn't have done and had exposure to the coaching training and experiences that I've had, I think some of the experiences I've had in my life would have hit me a lot harder and been a lot harder for me to develop and grow out and grow through.
Mm. And I think I bring a slightly different perspective. I mean, in our emotions coaching practice, we talk about two things. So we talk about flooding and we talk about stonewalling. And I know, because I know you so well, that, traditionally you've been a flooder, whereas emotional experiences and these traumatic things that have come into your life would have led to you flooding and being overwhelmed. I had the opposite issue, which is I would stonewall. So I would have always described myself as a hugely resilient person. Give it to me, I can take it on, I'll cope with everything. But the side effect of that is a lack of vulnerability. And when you have a lack of vulnerability, you have a lack of intimacy in your relationships, you feel lonely and unappreciated. So that was some more of my story. And I think what training to be a coach has given me isn't resilience, because I had that anyway, albeit in an optically healthy way, but I had resilience. What it's given me is connection, and actually the ability to be softer, to be slower, to be compassionate towards myself and also compassionate towards others. And it's brought me the ability to be more open. And when you're more open, you invite more in and more people in and more experiences in. And so I think that is about mental health and well-being, because it's about being able to access and receive more joy and more love and more appreciation. And so today, when I experience, difficulty and challenge, I find myself being able to ask myself the questions of like, what do I feel right now, and what help do I need? Whereas before, help wouldn't have even been on the agenda, because I'd be like, nope, I don't need any help. I should do it myself. And that's no way to be, is it? That's independence, which has its place, but actually, it's lovely to be interdependent, to have a team, your family team, your friend team, your physical team, all rallying around to support you in times of need. And I think it's important to be able to recognize. And I think one of the things, again, coaching has given me, that I have times of need, and that's okay. And when I'm in those times of need, here is how I need to be able to manage it healthily. And I wouldn't have had the ability to even have those thoughts before I trained as a coach.
Mm. And for me, the flooding bit isn't so much around like, was I a flooder? It was more the fear of flooding.
Mm,
That's what I had. So it wasn't really the flooding. I don't have the fear of flooding anymore. I don't have the fear of being like something because of anybody else's experience. Um, so what that gives me is a confidence and a strength and a courage when things happen, to accept them for what they are, and to be able to find a place of be able to find a place of acceptance with it. But it's the what we're trying to say here, I think, is that training to be a coach is so much more than an intellectual cognitive experience. And I think whenever we talk, whenever people talk about courses, I think the natural starting place is like imagining a textbook and all the reading, the consent, the practical things. Whereas actually the experience of training to be a coach is really more about, yes, read as you can, listen as you can, like absorb learning around the subject area in the ways that you learn best. But it's more around really developing and connecting with your whole self as a coaching tool, which is
mm,
a really amazing experience to have. And doing that, being held by all these people around you that were strangers not so long ago. But the sharing and all, it's the encouragement, it's being in an environment actually where bringing your whole authentic self is really consistently encouraged. um that I think is, I think training to be a coach is a very liberating experience.
Well,
Scary as it may be at times, but liberating ultimately.
it's life changing,
Mm.
and I, it's not something we say lightly. And I've put that on a post recently. I think we don't say it lightly that it's life changing, but investing in your personal and professional development through a course like training to be a coach, it is life changing. We've even had learners approach us privately behind the scenes say that's been life saving for me, and we weren't aware at the time that that was a position that those learners were in. But to have that feedback just shows how powerful investing in yourself is. Nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can rob you of the shifts in your mindset, the changes in the beliefs, the closer you get to alignment in your values, the decisions you make as a result of that learning, the boundaries that you can put in place. So much comes through. This is the stuff that should be taught in schools. That's probably a separate discussion, but we are never taught this as children or adolescents or teenagers. So we learn it by chance, that we stumble upon this thing called coaching and personal development, and we learn it and we're like, how have I lived my life without this? How was that possible? You're literally meandering through life guessing at how to do that well.
I think the significant shift from coaching training that's just prompted me to kind of connect with is when people encounter things and they, it's the stuckness. I think as human beings, we don't like to be stuck, but we can experience getting stuck in something and feeling like we can't get out. And I think what coaching does is it's about gaining new perspectives. It's being able to kind of lift up and out of that, look at different perspectives, and being able to step into a place of choice, feeling like you're getting control back. And there's loads and loads of tools and techniques and different ways to do that, but that ultimately is part of the core kind of outcomes. And some clients don't have very many intimate relationships, and so having the intimacy in that relationship can be so resourcing. And of course, as a coach, I think we've talked on a previous episode about how being a coach and coaching others can be healing in itself for the coach, and that isn't something to be shameful of, or to hide. It's what it is to be in relationship with another person, genuinely open, both of you open to being changed through that process. So as a coaching training organization, I think what we're sharing in this podcast is a bit around our ethos, our story, how we've come to be, the approach that underpins and the philosophy that underpins everything that we do. So if that speaks to you and you think, oh my gosh, I want to be part of this life affirming stuff. I need a bit of this. The world needs a bit of this. It's never actually needed it more. I want to be part of this change or this wave. Then visit our website, igcompany.co.uk, where you can book onto one of our programs or arrange to speak to one of the team.